What happens when you turn on a computer that you haven't touched in decades? Well, I booted up my childhood Apple IIgs after 30 years and I found something I never expected. Something that connected the past to the present in the most unexpected way. Consider this video an introduction. I know I want to capture the ways we interact with technology, old, new, retro, modern, how we shape it, and how it shapes us. I've got some fun things in the works, like an arcade cabinet restoration, some NES mods, a Famicom keyboard project that lets us use the fabled NES expansion port, and maybe some other weird and wonderful experiments with vintage and modern tech, aviation, ham radio, automotive, who knows what else I can find to tinker with and learn about. If you're like me, you probably had that one now vintage computer or console that shaped your childhood. For me, it was this, my Apple IIgs. Of course, I didn't think of it as vintage back then, it was just my computer. It was the machine that I typed school reports on and printed from to my dot matrix printer, learned to program BASIC with, and of course played games on. The Apple IIgs, the Nintendo, the Commodore 64, these weren't just tools of the 1980s and 90s, they were entire worlds of possibility. So let's go back to the late 1980s. My mother, a school teacher in our hometown, had a classroom computer lab. I remember her bringing me into the school and seeing the rows of new Apple IIe computers. Occasionally she'd lug home an Apple IIc, and I'd get a chance to play Reader Rabbit or Sticky Bear Town Builder on its tiny but iconic green phosphor screen. Then one day in 1988, she unpacked some boxes from her car. The color monitor of the Apple IIgs was unmistakable. This machine wasn't just a piece of technology, it became the centerpiece of our family's digital life, our very own home computer. From print shop banners to chasing Carmen Sandiego across the globe, I spent countless hours with this computer. I even dabbled in early video graphics, using its composite video output to explore digital art in ways that were nothing short of magical at the time.
Hi, I'm Levi Maya, and this is 50-50, the show that will go anywhere and do anything to find out what you think.
Perhaps the biggest game changer was when we added a 2400 baud modem. With it, I dialed into bulletin board systems like the Ocean State Freenet, online services like AOL and Genie. Every connection opened a window into a new digital frontier, bridging the gap between the past and the rapidly evolving world of the technological future. Over time, I upgraded the IIgs, adding a hard drive, sound input, and more RAM, transforming its capabilities and pushing it to the limit. Despite our efforts, by 1994, the Apple IIgs had become long in the tooth, as they say, as a primary home computer. And the IIgs was relegated to a desk in the basement, where it sat untouched for more than 3 decades. After the pandemic, during a visit to my parents' home in Rhode Island, my mom casually asked, "Do you want that Apple IIgs downstairs? What are you going to do with it?" Without hesitation, I said yes. I knew I had to reclaim it. At the moment I flipped the switch, it was like unlocking a forgotten part of the past. And then something unexpected happened. As I started digging through the old files, I came across something I had completely forgotten about. A story I'd written when I was 9 or 10 years old. At first, I was just amused that it still existed. But then I saw something that really stopped me in my tracks. The main character's name in the story, it was the same as my daughter's. Now, my daughter is about the same age I was when I wrote the story, and I have no memory of why I chose that name or if it was just a coincidence. But suddenly, this wasn't just an old file, it was a connection across time. between me as a kid and her today. I showed it to her, and I think for the first time she saw this old computer not as just some weird, outdated machine, but as a time capsule. Around that same time, I stumbled upon the incredible communities that exist around retro tech. YouTube channels, online forums, and of course, the Vintage Computer Federation. I had no idea how big this world had become. People weren't just collecting these old machines, they were modding them, restoring them, and even developing new software and hardware for them. It pulled me in immediately. I started attending VCF events, beginning with the Southwest Show in Dallas, and connecting with fellow enthusiasts. And eventually, I even helped launch the newest VCF, SoCal, in 2024. But despite working in TV and media myself for years, I never really considered dipping my foot into YouTube. It always felt like something other people did, something that required a certain level of time and commitment that I just wasn't sure I had. I put together a video retrospective of the event, mostly for fun, and I shared it with the community on some forums. Then Perry Fractic from the Retro Recipes YouTube channel reached out. Perry asked if he could run my video on his channel while he and his family took a well-deserved holiday, as he would say, from making videos. I said sure, and suddenly thousands of people were watching something that I'd shot on my iPhone over the weekend. But what really stuck with me was the support from all of you. The comments, the encouragement on Facebook, YouTube, people saying they wanted to see more. All this got me thinking about why I love working with technology, not just using it, but understanding it, preserving it, and sometimes even pushing it beyond what it was meant to do. And that brings me to something I've been really excited about, that arcade cabinet. I came across it on Facebook Marketplace, and despite its rough condition, I knew I had to grab it. Centipede is one of those games that defined the golden age of arcades, and for me, it represents something even bigger than that. If you've ever watched the TV series *Halt and Catch Fire*, you might remember the female lead Cameron playing Centipede in the opening scene.
I want to work for Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative and put missiles in space.
It was a subtle nod to real-life events. Centipede was co-designed and programmed by Donna Bailey, one of the first female developers at Atari. In the early 1980s, it was rare to see a woman in a room full of assembly coders, let alone leading the design of a hit arcade title. But she did it, and Centipede became one of the most iconic games of its time. So restoring this cabinet isn't just about preserving a game, it's about preserving a moment in time. A piece of art that broke barriers, captured imaginations, and, in its own way, pushed the world forward. I want to make it something unique. Our friend Amanda is helping me, and she'll repaint the missing side art with her own interpretation of the iconic bug, calling back to the classic Atari design, but with a modern flair. And I'm also adding something new. I'm diving into how to shape and wire custom LED neon to accent the artwork. I'm thinking of creating a glow effect that complements the original design but gives it a whole new presence. It's a way to make this piece of history my own while still recognizing what made it iconic. This project is a mix of preservation and customization, and I'm excited to bring you all along for the process because at the end of the day, I think that's what this channel's about, finding ways to make technology our own.